Welcome to today's session. I like to try and focus on perhaps expanding on a conversation around the topic of marriage. And my intention for today will be to try and answer the question Cui Bono, which when translated means who benefits. Now, let me begin by, I guess, making it clear. In this instance, I'm speaking to men, for men, and the idea is to help in the process of making better decisions. I think it would benefit men, but I believe it would also benefit women as well, because it would give women an insight as to how men think, which I believe is my key focus in what I've created as a new playlist: conversations, confessions, and catechisms. Now, let me start with the question about who benefits from marriage. I would say, first of all, that we have to accept that marriage today is not the same as what it was in the past. Without making this a philosophical conversation or interaction, there was a time when we had what we called separation of church and state. And the theme behind that, you might call it belief system, philosophy, motto, was that people were allowed, people were given the freedom to lead their lives without the interference of the government or politics. And historically, marriage was something that was left at, you might call it the communal, the familial level. Government had nothing to do with marriage. As the power of the government increased, and as people looked to the government to become a surrogate parent or surrogate husband or surrogate wife, we gave power to the government, and the result of which is today, the government is involved in every aspect of our lives. So today, if you want to get married, you have to get permission. Now, I'm speaking in the Western world, and I'm speaking about, in particular, Great Britain. And this applies across what we call the developed West, particularly North America, Canada, Australia, parts of Europe, developed Europe, and the United Kingdom. You can extend to other parts of the developed West, but at the core, I'm referring to the West. And so what we have today is a new way of interacting and living and way of relating to and with people. If I or you were looking to get married today, you would need to get a license, or you would need to get permission from the state. In many ways, it's no different from setting up a business. You get permission to set up the business, and if you choose, for whatever reason, if you choose to dissolve the business or the corporation, in this case, the marriage, then you have to go through a similar process as you would if you were closing down a business that had been incorporated. So the first thing to say is that marriage today is more of a contract, a legal contract. And the legal contract is binding in many ways. Depending on the jurisdiction or the location, the region, the country where you are, there are subtle differences. In any case, I am of the view that as of the present and looking forward, that there are very few reasons why most men would want to consider marriage. I've always believed in the process of a cost-benefit analysis, and in order for you to make a decision for which the outcome of that decision, irrespective of what the outcome is, could affect you, could affect your love life, could affect your lifestyle, your future. Whenever you're making a long-term decision, it's important to stop and ask the question, do the benefits outweigh the costs? And that's primarily what I try to perhaps put across in this session. Let me start by saying this. I don't believe, and it would be my recommendation, as a starter kit, the modern men today should not get married before the age of 35. Just keep that in mind. That's the first. Do not get married before the age of 35. You should not consider marriage until the age of 30 if you are a man, and particularly if you are in the developed West. The second thing would be, number 2, do not consider getting married if you have no intentions of having children. Like, I genuinely believe, as of today, the main purpose and the most important reason for marriage is for children. And even with the umbrella of marriage, you can still have children and still cohabit and be partners, and both people can be together. So the whole idea here is you don't have to sign a contract in order to be and in order to have the benefits of marriage. So 2 things. Number 1, do not get married before 35. Number 2, do not get married, or rather, do not consider marriage until you've reached the age of 30. I intend to expand these ideas in subsequent sessions. Now the third overrides the first 2. The third is, do not get married until you've achieved your dreams, or the most important part of your dreams. Do not get married until you've pursued your purpose. You've had a glimpse at achieving a dream, achieving your life's calling, achieving a desire, achieving a passion you have. Now, the way life is designed is we're always giving you assignments, new tasks. So you have an overarching purpose. As part of that purpose, or your reason, you have goals. You have your dreams, or a vision of who you want to be, where you want to go, what you want to have, places you would like to experience, people you would love to have around you, where you also have tasks. Now, keep in mind that over your entire lifetime, you will have opportunities to dream, to pursue the dream, and to realize the dream. So I'm not suggesting that in any way that you should put on hold the idea of marriage or starting a family until you've achieved everything you want. No, what I'm saying is, if the purpose of marriage, in my opinion, as of today, is primarily to have kids, or for the purpose of procreating, then one of the most important things a man needs is the resources to be able to provide for the wife, the family, and the kids. So, number 1, do not get married before 35. Number 2, do not consider marriage until at least age 30. Because I believe, from my experience, but also just observing a lot of people that I know, and a lot of, you might say, general data out there, statistics, facts, all of which are available on ONS, the Office of National Statistics. It so happens that men start to mature very, very late. And the most important decisions that we have to make, we tend to try to make those decisions too early, when we're not mature, when we don't have the wisdom, or we don't have the judgment, we don't have the discernment to make the right decisions. And number three, and I said previously that the number three overrides the first and overrides the second, which is if you haven't achieved your dreams, or you haven't had a chance to fail, to try things and fail, and try and achieve a calling, pursue a passion, you should not get married. You should not consider marriage just yet. Now, let's put that aside, and let me go into some of the reasons why I make such a recommendation. Now, I consider myself, and this is not a gospel according to Mensa. And what might surprise, I think, even people who know me, would be some of what I'm suggesting. In many ways, I'm not speaking from the position of a principle. I'm speaking from a position of expediency and efficacy. I'm not putting in my ethics, my value system, my preferences. No, I'm simply saying from a perspective of results or outcomes. What is in the best interest for men today? Take myself out of the equation and simply ask the question. If I had a son, I would go through these processes and I would ask the same question. So think about this as I explain some of the reasons why I think that men should delay marriage until the right time, or avoid marriage completely. Now, as you listen to me, if you are a female, as much as you can, imagine that I'm speaking to a brother that you have, or I'm speaking on behalf of your son. Do not look at this as though I'm speaking against you. Do not listen emotively, but think about the logic that I'm putting across. Again, this is a perspective for men. The first is, I'm going to use an analogy first, and then I'll connect the analogy to the topic, and then I'll see if I can summarize. If I came to you and I said that there is an opportunity for both of us to go into business, we will be equal partners. You would own 50% of the equity, and I would own 50% of the equity that remains. That would also mean that according to the arrangement we have, you would also own 50% of the liabilities of the business, and I will own 50% of the liabilities. So the total assets that we have will be a combination of all of our equity and all of our liabilities. In many ways, it's the reverse if you applied the basic accounting equation. Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. That's a business. That's a business structure. A business goes through what we call a life cycle. The business is created. It goes through a process of growth, but it requires so much reinvestment at the early stage in order to grow. It goes into a phase of what I call mature growth. And if both the product and services being provided are desirable to the market, it goes into perhaps sometimes a hyper growth phase. Eventually, the business matures, it peaks, and then it starts to decline, eventually. In the same way, everything in life goes through a cycle. A marriage is started, it grows, it peaks, it gets into an even keel, and eventually it declines. Whether that decline is because someone dies, or whether that decline has to do with preferences and choices that both parties make. Now keep that concept in mind. Businesses that are created today have a very high likelihood of failure. if you create a business today, and in this venture that we've created, there's a probability that 9 out of 10 times our business venture will fail. But if both of us are equally committed to the business, we can ensure that the failure is not a result of our actions. In other words, even if we fail, we'll start again. And even if we fail, we'll start again. And even if we fail, we'll start again until we succeed. That's the mindset that we come into the partnership with. Now, what if I said to you that I wanted to make an alteration to the arrangement that we have? The memorandum of association or understanding had to change. And I said, I would still retain 50% of the business. But you get to contribute 100% of the work needed to make the business succeed. Now remember, both of us started on equal grounds. But in addition to that, I could also do things that can sabotage the business in order for the business to fail. And if I did that when the business has started to create so much wealth and build so much in net worth and has a lot of assets, if I'm successful in, causing the business to fail, I still get to keep 50% of the equity, of the assets of the business. Now you would look at me and think, this has to be crazy. This has to be the most idiotic proposal I've ever heard. Now let's put that aside. And I'd like you to follow the analogy to understand my perspective about how marriage should be viewed in today's lens. Again, I'm not criticizing the institution of marriage. Before, marriage used to be what you might call an institution, a not-for-profit institution. It's no longer the same today. The landscape has changed, the environment has changed, the players have changed. The value system or the foundation upon which we built the concept of marriage has changed. So I am analyzing marriage in its present state, as it is. In today's society, in the UK today, and in the United States, and in Canada, and in most of the developed West, there is a 50% chance of failure if you get married. In the UK, it's approximately 50%. In other parts of the world, it's slightly above 50%. That percentage increases as the number of marriages you have increases. So if it's your first time, 50%. If it's your second time, 60%. If it's your third marriage, 70 or more. So the first reason why modern men should avoid marriage today is because it has a probability of failure. Now, I'm not averse to risk. By nature, I like risk. The Chinese talk about a double lettered symbol. On one side it's called opportunity, and on the other side it's called crisis. The word for risk in China, or in the Chinese language, as far as I'm led to believe, is that it's a combination of danger and opportunity. In other words, you have the opportunity to make something beautiful, something that will last and endure, especially if you have offsprings. But at the same time, you have the probability that you will run into a crisis for which the venture will fail. So I'm not adverse to the probability of failure. I'm concerned about the probability of failure because of the second reason that I'm about to give, for which I think you should keep in mind. In the event of the marriage failing, you lose more than 50% of the total wealth that you, the man, has created. Now I know that the dynamics of earning potential is starting to change, but so far today, the men are usually the major breadwinners. They're the ones who make the money, the greater lion's share of the wealth. But in any case, whatever wealth you created before the marriage and whatever wealth that is accumulated during the marriage is seen as communal property, for which you get only 50%, sometimes less, depending on the location or country. But that's not the issue. The third reason for not getting married is partly why I'm concerned about the first two. The third is, if you were to look at the data in the United Kingdom, 70%, approximately 70% of all divorces that are filed are done so by the women. So keep that in mind. In the United States, that number is 80%, and even greater in certain ethnic groups. So what we have, number one, 50% chance of failure. Number two, you lose 50% of your entire wealth. But it's not that you're losing 50% of your entire wealth. It's also that there is a claim on any future income you earn in perpetuity. Again, subject to the differences and the variances and in unique circumstances. And number three, 70% to 80% of the time is the woman who files for divorce. Now, in the remaining 30% in the UK, or 20% in the United States, from the data that I have seen, in close to 50% of the remaining 30%, UK, 20% US, the filing made by the man is made with the instruction given from the woman. In other words, the lady says, I want you to give me a divorce. He might say no, and she says, I want you to give me a divorce. So he files because she's requested for a divorce. When you aggregate the overall filings by men, you start to get to a number that is maybe between 10 and 15, sometimes up to 20% in the UK or in the United States. So what you find is, going back to the business concepts, the company concept, men are staying in their marriages. Now, I'm not addressing the reasons behind whatever decisions are made between two people. I'm not going into that. But I know that as of April this year, in 2 months, we'll have, a ruling where people can file for divorce without cause. You don't have to explain the grounds for your divorce. You just have to say, I want a divorce. That is happening across the West, and that has accelerated and increased the number of filings. And the people filing the most, majority, are the women. So what I have here is, number one, I lose 50%. Well, go back. There's a 50% probability of failure. I lose 50% of my net worth and my future earning potential because I have to pay, in most cases, spousal support. And if there are kids, the child maintenance and the child support. Number three, the woman 7 out of 10 times in the UK, or 8 out of 10 times in the United States, she gets to file for divorce. So irrespective of whether I've done something wrong or not, the divorce will go through if she files. Now let's move to number 4. If there are kids involved, if we have children, or the two parties have children, in 9 out of 10 times, the child custody is given to the mother. In 1 out of 10 times, the father might get 50%, 50-50 child custody. In other words, even the kids that have been produced by both parents one parent is disadvantaged. Men, one of the things that kills and breaks the hearts of men in marriages once they've had children is the fear that their kids might be taken away from them. So that's number 4. Now, number 5 is connected to number 4, which is that the legislative and the judicial system in the West is almost anti-male, especially in divorces. Women are seen to be the victims, and for that reason, the judicial system does not favor men. Men fear they will lose everything. They'll lose their wealth, they'll lose their family, and they will lose access to their children. And that is partly because of the way the judicial system is created. So I've given you 5 different points. The first 4 have been exacerbated by legal changes, laws and regulations and policies that have been written into the Western world that favors, that encourages, and also favors, in many ways, the dissolution of the traditional family. Now, when you look at the first 5 things I've given you, if you were to analyze this logically, and this is not an opinion of mine alone, the data is out there. Again, if you go to the Office of National Statistics, you can find all of this information. If you go in the United States to the various websites, the CDC, the United States government, and several websites, they have all of this information available. This is not an exclusive information that I have access to. It is available in the public domain. When you've looked at all of these 5 items I've listed, what comes to mind is number 6, which is that even if, as a man, you get married, unfortunately, as of today, the benefits that men typically used to get as a result of marriage no longer exist, or have been reduced drastically. And I'll try to expand on some of these concepts so it's easy to appreciate. But let me perhaps go down that route very, very briefly, just so I keep you on board in my thought process. When I say benefits, I'm a firm believer in choices. I believe people should be given the opportunity to make choices. I'm also a very firm believer that with choices come consequences. And those consequences come with constraints. And unfortunately, those constraints have to be made by you, the individual. Some of those constraints and consequences lead to unintended consequences. And they have costs. So choices, consequences, constraints, costs. And what that simply means is that in a finite world with finite resources, when you make choices, there are seldom solutions to the problems you're trying to solve. They are usually trade-offs. So we're always trading something against another. So when we say we want to get married, we're making a choice. There are some constraints. There are consequences. There is a cost. But in other words, you're trading off one lifestyle against another. Now, historically, perhaps I should just explain this briefly. Historically, men got married for a number of reasons. In principle, you might say at the core, men got married because of sex. And I'll try to expand that. There were 2 reasons. One was sex, and one had to do with the output of what the sex potentially would produce, which is children, which led to an economic benefit. So in the hunter-gatherer days, you needed men to take a wife, to reproduce, because the more people you had in the family, the more hands you had, and the more labor you had, the more you could produce to feed the family. So there was an economic benefit. But before the economic benefit was that men had a desire. There was a need that had to be satisfied. Let me say this. Men need sex. We don't want sex. We need sex. It's in our nature. Women, on the other hand, need intimacy and affection. But they want sex. Slightly different. So a man cannot go without sex. It's in our nature. Now some do, by choice, but most don't. So in order for you to take a woman, you have to marry the woman. You know, back in the day, you couldn't just shag another man's daughter without asking for his hand in marriage. It was not acceptable. So most men decided to get married with the idea that they would get sex. But it wasn't just sex that was the issue. It was that back then most women were virgins. So you were getting, forgive me for using this analogy, but I think it serves the purpose. You were getting a brand new vehicle. Brand new car, never been touched. And so effectively you were buying through the process. Maybe I shouldn't have used the word buy, because I think that stirs up so much emotive feelings. But in other words, you were getting married for the opportunity that you would exchange your resources and you would sacrifice in perpetuity for the opportunity to have something new. So you were getting the woman's body, her youth, her womb, her body, her mind, all of which were still without baggage. The womb had never been used because he had never reproduced. The body, in terms of, it was still intact. You could say the hymen hadn't, using that colloquial reference, had not been broken. She was still a virgin. And so you got a virgin, you got her beauty, her youth, her womb, and her mind. And for that you exchanged, in many ways, provision and protection. The idea was that you would die for country or for the family. Traditionally, that was what men were signing up for. So when I make reference to, I'm talking about point number 6 now, when I make reference to the fact that men today are no longer getting the benefits that they once received from marriage, what I'm referring to is this. Now, again, think about this and look at this information logically. Don't get too emotional about what I'm trying to say. He got sex, and with that came your body, your youth, your beauty, your womb, your mind. He got a partner. He got to cooperate with someone. In many ways, it was still death, do you part. In other words, I have a partner for life. Someone I will provide for, profess to, protect, make my promises to, all of that. So there was almost a gender role that existed. Both parties understood what they were getting. In addition to that, back in the day, a lot of the young girls were trained to be wise. They were prepared for that life. And so in addition to the woman's body, he also got her service in some traditional way that would have involved reproducing for him, giving him the highest honor of giving him children, but looking after the children, looking after him. So there were some traditional benefits. And as part of that whole process, the gender roles allowed both sexes to be not equal, because to be equal means one person is not needed. It allowed both sexes to be complementary to one another. The man had to go out and bring home the bacon. Now, if he died in the process, that was his obligation. Whether there was a saber-toothed tiger in the jungle, or a lion, whether there were people, invaders, it didn't matter. His role was to provide. His role was to protect the family. His role was to profess his love, provide a pathway for the future through a vision. That was his role. Today, modern men, unfortunately, do not get any of that. I have to say, in the last many years, the idea of a woman being a virgin is somehow foreign, as in it's foreign to me. Young girls are having sex at 13 and 12. Women are delaying getting married until 30. I think the average age in the UK today is 34. That's 1 year off geriatric pregnancy, which is 35. So if you got married at 34 and it took you a year to get ready for reproducing, if that's what both of you decided that you want to, you're already in high risk pregnancy. So not only is he not getting a virgin, I'm not saying that you should be a virgin, that's your decision, but I'm saying in many ways, like a car, he's getting a used car. Between 18 and 35, you have 18 years, and he's getting you at the last year of that 18-year period when the woman's value is at the highest. From a reproductive perspective, I refer to this as your RFV, which is your reproductive fertility value. It's highest between 18 and all the way up to about 28, 29. But he's getting you roughly at 34, which is beyond that point. Your sexual marketplace, he's getting you at a much later date. So it's similar to getting a car that has been used. It's been used by other people who are not paying the price that the man is having to pay. So in many ways, you're paying the highest price, but you're getting the least value relative to the total value of the asset. In this case, is the woman, something of value. The more sexual partners any individual has, the more trauma we carry. So if you've had multiple sex partners, multiple relationships, with that will come heartbreaks, emotional disagreements. Sometimes some of them will be traumatic, pain, suffering, rejection, and an impact on your self-esteem. So he also gets someone who is, you might say, not really whole. When you combine the 6 items I referred to, and you look at number 6 particularly, which has to do with the benefit he gets, one comes to a conclusion, which is the cost the man potentially has to pay compared to the benefits he gets. You can't make an equal comparison. In other words, the net benefit to the man is negative, all things considered. Now, that is not to suggest that there are no benefits to marriage. There are. If you want to have children, that's a benefit. That's a trade-off you make. Now, the whole idea of all of this conversation is to put in front of you all of the decisions you should consider, so that you can make what I would consider to be an intelligent, rational, not emotional, rational decision. Now, in the UK, most marriages end within the first 7 years, 7.5 years to be precise. The younger you are when you got married, the higher the likelihood that you'll get divorced, which has to do with why I said you delay marriage for men until you're mature, until you've achieved your goals, until you've achieved your dreams. until you know what you're doing, until you recognize and accept that despite all of the costs, the benefits outweigh the cost, or even when the benefits are less, you're still willing to make a sacrifice.